Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy's online enrichment program. My name is Marianne, and I'm the Education Director at the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy. And we have a very special guest for our program today. This is my friend Mia. Mia, can you say hi to everyone?
Hi, my name is Mia. I'm 9 years old, and I live in Concord, Massachusetts.
Awesome. So Mia and I are here today because we are celebrating Earth Week. And with tomorrow being Earth Day, we wanted to talk about how kids can get involved in conservation. So we're really excited to have everyone joining us today. My name is Marianne, and I work for the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy. We are a nonprofit based on Cape Cod, and we are focused on white shark conservation. So through research, education, and public safety, we are working to ensure that we have white sharks not just today, tomorrow, next week. We want to make sure that we have white shark for years to come, especially so that when young scientists like Mia here grows up, we want to make sure that there's still white sharks in our ocean when you grow up, right, Mia? Yeah. And a lot of times, some people might think, well, there's not much that kids can do to get involved in conservation. But what do you think, Mia? Are there things that kids can do to get involved in conservation?
There are a lot of things that we can do, even though we might not be as old as grown-ups. But there are a lot of things that we can do.
Absolutely. And that's what we're going to dive into today. Awesome. And so for our program today, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to share our slideshow. And, Mia, let's share with everyone, how did you and I meet? How did we get to know one another?
Well, I started going to this organization called the Gills Club, which you run. And it was like a place where girls could learn more about sharks.
Yeah. So that's absolutely right. And so, we met through the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy's Gills Club events, and you started coming to those because, do you like sharks?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know, silly question. Are you currently sitting amongst a whole cloud of shark stuffies there? Yeah, maybe. Mia, do you want to show everyone at home which one of those stuffies is your favorite?
I love them all.
Maybe some of our viewers at home, they can show us, hopefully they're holding their shark stuffies as they're watching today. That would be pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's right. So because you love sharks and are so excited about sharks, you started looking for opportunities to learn about them. And so we met through one of those learning opportunities, right? And I think it's important for kids all over to know that, in, looking for kids to get involved in conservation, step one is probably learning about things that you're interested in, right? So for you, your interest was sharks?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what are some of the ways that you've looked to learn about sharks?
Some ways that I look to learn for them is I started to read more books about sharks, and I started to read these things on National Geographic about them. And most of all, I really learned from the Gills Club with the dissections and all those experiments with getting oil out of water.
Awesome. So I love how you just gave, kids at home 2 great things that they can do to get involved in conservation, right? So, if you're going to help as a kid to conserve something, make sure we have it for the future. I think right off the bat, I love how you're telling everyone they can read books, right? So that they can build their background information. Books have been a big resource for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then also looking for, opportunities to go and learn. And, you've come to events, but you've also gone and you've looked for tours that you've been able to do at some labs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And have you taken trips to aquariums so you can go and learn at aquariums or zoos?
Taken a lot of trips to aquariums.
You get a lot of trips to aquariums. That's right. So, those are all great things that, if kids want to help in conservation, would you say that step one would be that they have to learn about the subject they're interested in, whether it's sharks or whales or the ocean in general, or maybe kids are really excited about trees? You know, step one would be taking some time to learn as much as they can about that subject. Would you agree with that?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. And right now it might be tough for some kids, you know, to be able to fully learn as much as they can, because we know that, you know, not everyone can go to the aquariums right now or to some of the museums. And I even know even some libraries are closed. But I think it's important to note that, you know, we at the Conservancy are putting on these programs for sharks, but a lot of other organizations are putting some great stuff out there about other, you know, environmental topics as well. So, you know, even though we're all at home right now and we're practicing social distancing, there are a good amount of online resources right now so that kids can learn about different things. So let's see. And this is something else that I think is really great that you've done, Mia. You've really looked for different opportunities to just be able to talk about sharks, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was your 8th birthday party and you decided to have a shark theme, right? Yeah. So what did you do at your 8th birthday party? Because with that shark theme, you taught all of your friends about sharks. What did you do?
Yeah, well, first, like, you came and you did a little talk about them, and talks about like how not all sharks are the same, with those little sharks that like float in water. And another thing that we did, we had like another thing that we did is we had and like another thing, and we put like a really long talk about sharks in there.
Awesome. So you used your birthday party as an opportunity where you could, you know, really teach others about what you've learned about sharks through books and looking for events or going to places where you could learn about sharks. And a lot of your friends, would you say that they liked sharks before they went to your birthday party?
Well, I think that like no, not really.
But after your birthday party, after they had that opportunity to learn about them, do you think some of them looked at sharks differently?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
And how about even your family? Because this photo shows you and your whole family. And was everyone in your family as excited about sharks as you are?
yeah.
Yeah, well, everyone's pretty excited about sharks now.
Hmm?
Yeah. And I think something else that's great to note in this is that, you know, we have worked with a lot of kids across the country, not even just here in Massachusetts, who have used their birthday similar to you to share, you know, how they're passionate about sharks and they're excited about them. And there are some kids who, you know, they might not have had anything that they could donate to support conservation efforts, whether it be shark conservation or again, looking at maybe sea turtles or right whales. And so they use their birthday party as an opportunity to help support those organizations. And instead of asking for birthday presents, they asked for friends and family to donate to those organizations. And you did this just this past year. And you, for your birthday, you asked for something very different. You didn't ask for toys. What did you ask for?
I asked for like a sewing machine and I asked for fabrics to be able to make some animal pouches for the Cook Wildlife Center in Australia.
Awesome.
And
So this was something that, you know, again, and this is something we're seeing more and more kids do. And I think it's a great way for kids to be involved in conservation is take something like your birthday and make it an educational opportunity, but also make it a way that, you know, you can have your friends and family help to support a cause that you're excited and you're passionate about. So for some of our friends who might not be familiar, what was happening in Australia this past year that was really bad for a lot of different animal species?
well, there were lots of like bushfires and wildfires, and like, but that was like the habitat of some animals. So the Point Cook Wildlife Center, they're trying to like get those animals to safety and like get them out of like their because like that those bushes or those trees were like their habitat. But like now that those are on like fire, they have to like go somewhere else.
All right. And so, you know, that was a really hard thing, I think, for anyone who cares about wildlife in general. You know, it was really hard for everyone to watch and see what was happening because just like you just said, so many animals, their habitat was destroyed. And there were a lot of organizations that were going in and they were trying to, rescue those animals and bring them to a safe place. And so, once they got to those safe places, they had to start to rehabilitate and, give medical treatment to a lot of those animals who suffered from burns. What was it that the Point Cook Rehabilitation Center, what was it that they were looking for that you made with the fabric and the sewing machine that you asked for your birthday? What did you make?
Well, I made like a little pouch for an animal to sleep in, and I made one for a brush-tailed possum, which is what this animal is. And so, like, what the animal would do is it would like sit inside the pouch, and that would be like its bed.
So you helped make these safe pouches so that Point Cook could use this in their rehabilitation of those animals, right?
Yeah.
Now, before your birthday and before the wildfires in Australia, did you know how to sew?
No, not at all.
No, but you felt like you wanted to do something to help the wildlife and you saw that they were asking for people to make pouches. So did you teach yourself how to sew so you could do this?
Well, my mom helped me a lot with it because like she had previously known how to sew, but a lot of it was like trial and error.
And I think that's important for kids at home to know is that, so was this easy for you?
Definitely not.
Definitely not. But you were up for the challenge, right? Because you really wanted to do something to help those animals. And so maybe did you have to do some trial and error with your sewing?
Yeah,
Yeah. But in the end, how many pouches were you able to make and send down to Australia?
4.
4. That's really amazing. Having never sewn before, to be able to put 4 of them together and send down there, right? That's pretty great. And that's a huge help to Point Cook. I saw that, they put out a big recognition for you on social media because they were so excited to receive those pouches, right? Yeah. And I don't know if our friends at home can really see, but, I know you love all animals, but I'm pretty sure sharks are your favorite. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So those pouches, some of that fabric that you used, what kind of fabric was it?
Shark fabric.
Shark fabric. So even though you were helping some of these other species of animals who are found on land, you were still, putting your sharky touch on it, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much the only fabric I have. We just have tons of shark fabric.
Well, I think that's because everyone who got that fabric for you for your birthday knew that that's your favorite, right? Yeah. And so, I think that this is something else that's important that, for kids at home to realize is that, how did you learn about the wildfires in Australia? Was it from watching the news? Was it something that your parents told you?
Well, like yes. Yeah, well, I got it from the news. And my parents would talk to me about it sometimes.
Okay. And so, a lot of times when we watch things on the news, a lot of people, as we said earlier, and sometimes I think kids even think, you watch it and maybe you're sad about it and you realize, wow, that's really awful, but you don't necessarily know what you can do to help, right? But so you had a conversation with your parents because you saw that, they needed these pouches and you found a way that you could help. Even though it was a challenge for you, you had to learn how to sew and you collected in this material. But I think that's really important to note that if kids hear about something on the news that, is upsetting to them and they want to do something to try to help in that, they should absolutely talk to the adults around them to find a way so that they can help, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And even if it's a bit challenging, and like it was a challenge for you, do you think it was definitely worth it for you to persevere and learn how to sew so you could get those pouches made?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
when I started sewing, that made a gateway. So during coronavirus, I could sew masks. And these are 2 of the examples, also in shark fabric, because why not? And we have made 200 masks so far.
Oh my goodness. And I think I have a picture here. Yep, we do. And that's, I think that's incredible, is now you have this skill, you have this ability to sew. And again, here you are, even though you're a kid, right? 9 years old, you saw on the news that people needed masks. So you looked and you said, well, we still have all this shark fabric, and you learned how to make the masks so that you can help first responders right now. So again, here's a great example of how you learned about something. And even though you're a kid, you talked with your family. Here in this photo, we see you working with your brother, right? So you guys work together to help to be able to put together some of these masks so you could help not just in conservation of wildlife, but you're helping your community right now, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Me and my Max are actually making like a cover for a mask, so it can extend the use of the mask.
Ah, so they're covers. So okay. Very good.
This is just a regular.
Yeah. So that one's a regular mask, and then you made some covers for people so that are reusing their masks so they can wash it.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's pretty cool that it comes back to, you're also using all these opportunities to put your Sharky style on it, right? And you're using that shark fabric. Do you think that's getting people talking about sharks?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, and this is something that I know you do all the time, and this is something, again, all kids can do, is that once you become educated on the subject that you really care about, you can start looking for ways that you can help, whether it's by holding a fundraiser, looking for donations in lieu of birthday presents, and at any time, once you become smart about that subject, you can start speaking on it, and you can actually start to, share it out with people and educate them, because then they might be inspired to also help in that conservation project. Am I right?
Yeah, another thing that we did, like I started out doing that like a long time before. Like I forget if it was like first grade. We did this like during math class. We used to make these comics about sharks, and we would like share them with our class. And then in second grade, we started to do more of that by doing like quizzes about sharks. And now in third grade, we're doing a school newspaper, and we're writing facts about them to a newspaper.
That's really great. So I love how you just gave different examples for how at different ages, you were able to look at ways that, again, even as you're with your class, you could share that information, because by you educating others, maybe you can inspire other people to want to help in conservation about sharks. And, maybe it's not necessarily sharks that other people are inspired by, but maybe some people see how much you have done to help wildlife, that maybe it's inspiring them because they have an interest in maybe dolphins or sea turtles, that they're trying to help those animals now, right? Which, I think it's good to note that whatever species it is that people are passionate about, whether it's plant or animal, if people can start speaking up for our environment and talking about it with other people, is that going to help the environment as a whole?
Well, yeah, it's going to help, like everyone's doing their own little part in the world. And if we all do it together, then the world will be a much better place.
That's perfect, Mia. You just put it into the best words, right? That if everyone can do their part, whatever their part is, it's going to help to make the world a better place. All right. So something that, we want to share with other people is that, what are some other things that, maybe other, kids can do at home to help in conservation? So we see one photo here shows, and this is one of our volunteers, Allie. Allie was on a beach walk, and so she turned it into a beach cleanup, right? And is this something that, kids can do with their families if they're on a hike, or if they are at the beach, helping to just pick up trash when we see it and, get it, since rather off the ground, but instead into recycle bins or trash bins. Is that something anyone can do?
Yeah, it's a great idea. That's something that we can all do, and it doesn't really require anything to like any special skills. You can just go on a hike, and then you can just find trash on the road and pick it up.
That's great. And I think that's a great point, is that, for some kids who are watching, maybe you're thinking, well, I don't know how to sew and I don't have a sewing machine. but my family goes on a walk every morning. So now they can turn their walk into, looking around and looking to pick up trash. And I think it is something to note right now that before any kids go out and do this, because of the challenging times that we are in, that you really have to make sure right now you talk to your parents. As you can see in this photo, Allie is wearing gloves as she's going out and she's picking up that trash. So we want to make sure that everyone is being safe at home while they think about how they can help in conservation. And if they're going to put any of those thoughts into action, make sure you have a conversation with the adults in your life so that you can make sure that you are doing it safely, especially during these times that we are in right now. This other photo shows, and this is something, so this was another Girls Club member, and this was Lucy. And Lucy saw something that was going on, and so she wrote a letter to politicians. Now, you take writing in school, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And have you been able to write letters before?
Yes. One time we wrote a letter to the governor about like pollution and problems that are going on.
Awesome. And so that's our example is that, for some of these things that you're hearing about in the news and that you're seeing are going on in our environment, you as a kid, you don't have the ability to vote yet, do you?
Yeah, we really don't.
You
So,
don't. But you have a voice still, don't you?
yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's great that you in school, you learned about something. And so you then use that opportunity to write a letter to the governor because the governor has that power, right? That he could put something into action to help our environment. So whether it is at the town level, the city level, the state level, or even our federal government, if kids are, seeing something that's going on and they want to see something done about it, maybe they want to see a rule go into place, that everyone would then have to follow. Writing a letter is something we can all do from home, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I know here on the Cape, there were a group of kids who got together and they wrote letters and they tried to, look at their town and they tried to ban plastic straws because plastic straws really aren't recyclable. And so that's plastic. And oftentimes that's a huge pollutant that's found on beaches or on trails and in the woods. And so that was a group who came together and they wrote those letters. But that's a nice example, wouldn't you say, of, looking at something, seeing how it's a problem. And so they tried to ban those plastic straws so that all the restaurants in their area had to use paper straws instead or go straw free.
In my class, kids tried to ban stuff like plastic bags, and we tried to innovate new materials that bags can be made out of, and we came up with some ideas. Well, you could try to make like a bamboo bag, or you could try to make like we could try to make more fabric bags, maybe, and we can use different materials other than just plastic because that plastic is like something that gets polluted a lot too.
And I love that you just shared that with everyone, that not only did you and your classmates write a letter, trying to ban plastic bags, but you gave suggestions, right? So it sounds like you and your classmates did some research. And so you're not writing a letter just saying why plastic bags are bad, but you also wrote that letter, saying, we don't think people should use the plastic bags because they're not good for the environment. You gave those reasons, but then you gave some alternatives. So you really tried to offer that guidance on here are some things that can happen that would be more, beneficial for the environment. And I think that's a really strong point to have in the letter, right? To actually give some of those suggestions.
Good to have something to say like, well, if we're not going to use this anymore, what are we going to do instead? It's good to have something to back you up in case you don't have an answer to that question.
That is awesome. And I think that's something really important for if anyone's going to write a letter from home for them to think about and make sure to include in that letter. I'm glad that you shared that with everyone. So something to get ready for Earth Day that we at the Conservancy put together, and in talking to me about this, she just made a conservation SMART goal. We wanted to share with everyone at home who's watching, this template so that, people can make their own goal. And SMART goals are a specific type of goal that when you write out a SMART goal, it really helps you to, not only think about what your goal is, but also set yourself up in the best possible way to achieve that goal, because it actually helps you to make the plan for how you're going to get through that goal. So Mia, you said last week you made a conservation SMART goal. What was the conservation SMART goal that you made?
Well, it was a science project about like in multiple ways. And some of the ways that we did was we started growing our own food. Like we're starting to grow we're starting to grow tomatoes. We also made our own napkins out of cloth. And we also we're gonna start composting. And those are just a few of the ways that I put it.
Okay,
Well,
so I like this. You didn't just come up with one conservation SMART goal, you came up with a few, but let's start talking about each of those as we go over so all of our friends at home can learn how to make a SMART goal, okay? So the first part in making a SMART goal is that you want to be specific. So, you want to state exactly what it is you're going to do, and it's good to use action words, include verbs in this. So some ideas could be that you are going to pick up trash, use a reusable water bottle, that you're going to skip the straw, or I like the one because you're at home right now, Mia, and you had this fabric. So for you, something you knew that you could do was that you were going to use reusable napkins, right? That's one of the goals that you made.
It's also really important that your goal is realistic and you make sure that it's possible for you to do that. Because if your goal was like, I'm going to make sure everyone votes to make sure we no longer have plastic straws, you have to make sure that it's possible. Because then if it doesn't happen, you might feel kind of sad.
That is a great point. Okay, that absolutely. And I think especially because of, the challenging time that we are all in right now and practicing social distancing, and with not necessarily being in schools or at work, we're all living our lives a little differently right now. And I think that's important to keep in mind too. But I love what you're pointing out is that, you want to make sure that whatever you are going to do is that it's realistic or that it is relevant, because we want everyone to achieve their goals, but you're right. Some of those goals are pretty hard to achieve. So let's break it down and let's see where can we start right now, right?
Yeah, you have to understand that some of these goals, they might take like a really long time to achieve.
Yes. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about is a timeline. So, we just talked about how it's got to be specific. And Mia brought up that great point that we want to make sure it's something that is realistic, something that, you can do working with the people in your household. And so then the next thing you would want to do is you want it to be something that's measurable. So, looking at a way that you can evaluate it. So, for you, Mia, if you use that option of, you were going to use reusable napkins, rather than using paper napkins, you can measure it because you could look at every day that you're using a reusable napkin rather than a paper one, right? That's something you can measure. You can actually look at all of the days and all of the paper napkins you were able to save, right?
Yeah, and you could like make a calendar. You can put like your goals in like little boxes, and you can say, did I use a silicone straw, or did I use a cloth napkin? Did I use my reusable water bottle? To make sure that you're doing your goal every.
I love that. So people can, whether it's a checkbox that they put on the calendar, but they can actually start to keep a tally of how many days that they were able to accomplish their goal and really start to be able to measure. Because we know that if you used a reusable water bottle, let's say for an entire month, instead of using plastic water bottles each time, right? That's about 30 plastic bottles that you didn't use, that you were able to eliminate in that sense. So I love that point that everyone can do at home is not only can you use this worksheet, but then you can use a calendar to really be able to measure and document how many days you were able to, follow that practice to help you in that conservation SMART goal.
Another thing that you have to make sure is like, if your goal is like, I'm going to use my reusable water bottle for a month, you have to make sure after that month, you're still not using those like plastic water bottles. Because if you actually want to make a change, you have to make sure that you don't go back to the thing that you were supposed to do.
That's a really great point, is that let's say for, your goal and looking at being measurable, that you set it that I'm going to use my reusable water bottle for a month. you're doing this to help the environment, and you're doing it to get into a habit of doing things that are environmentally friendly and that will help in conservation. So, going back to those things after the fact wouldn't really be setting us up, right? Maybe you can extend your goal further, right? Okay, I did it for 1 month. Now let's see if I can continue doing it for the next 3 months. And it's always, when you have a goal, you can always stop at any time and you can reevaluate that goal, right? See how you're doing with it. Maybe extend your timeline or extend your goal and your reach in that way.
Mhm.
Yeah. So the next thing that you want in a SMART goal is you want to make sure that it's achievable. And this is, I think, what you were saying in the beginning, is that you want to make sure that it is something that's, possible for you to accomplish. So like you said, it would be really hard if you set a goal that you want to make sure everyone in your town votes to maybe ban plastic straws or ban plastic bottles. That might be something that's a bit challenging to do as well as measure, because then you've got to check in with everyone in town and see how they vote because of voting laws. So it's good to really take some time to think about what your conservation goal is going to be and make sure that it's achievable for you. And I think that this is a good time, in talking about if it's achievable or not. You can talk to your peers. So talk to some other youth your age and talk to, your friends and family around you in your house, because they might have some good feedback and how you can take what seems like maybe a really great goal, but it's really big, and maybe they can help break it down into a smaller level, right?
Well, sometimes you maybe think that like only I have to do this goal. I have to carry the weight of everything I have to do. But sometimes it's better to just break it up and like share the work with other people to make sure that like you're not putting so much work on yourself.
And that's another great point, is I think especially with some of these goals, and especially with everything that's going on right now, it's important that, you talk with your family so that they can get on board with you, because they'll be a good support system to help you achieve your goal. And then for some of those bigger goals, if your family's in on it as well, and maybe your class, that might help by working together. That might help you to achieve some of those bigger goals. So then the next thing is making sure that it is relevant. So, you want to make sure that your goal is going to improve the environment in some way. I think also when we think about relevant, you also want to keep in mind, what's going on around us right now, and making sure that it is something that's doable right now. Because with everything that's going on, it is important to note that, per guidelines, there is a lot of single use. When you go to the grocery stores, they're using plastic bags right now, and they want people to dispose of them after. So there are some things right now that for safety reasons, we are following and we are doing. So, having those conversations with your families to see if it's achievable, but also if it's relevant, especially with everything that's going on right now.
Yeah.
And then the last one, oh, do you want to add something, Mia?
Yeah, because if your goal is like, I'm gonna start to eat more fruit, is that really helping it? Is that really helping the environment? Because you have to think like, not really. Is it really relevant to helping the environment if you're just gonna eat something?
That's right. And I think that, that's a good point in terms of, right now we're talking about making a conservation SMART goal. So the relevancy should have to do with, helping in conservation aspects in some way. And so maybe if it was a health SMART goal that people are looking at living a healthier lifestyle, that would be a really great goal, making sure you're eating more of your fruits and vegetables. But since we're looking at conservation, you want to make sure the relevancy ties into what the theme of the goal is. So that's a really good point. The last one is that it's timely. So it is important that, you set a goal for yourself on when you're going to accomplish this goal by, and you want to be specific. And, this can also tie in with the measurable, that you can use a calendar at home, something to actually document, how you're going to accomplish this goal, and by what time. When are you planning to do so? But I loved what you said before, Mia, is that, let's say, someone's goal is that they're going to use a reusable water bottle for the next month. In true conservation mindset, then they want to make sure they're continuing to use that reusable water bottle after the fact. So, people might want to readjust and then look at, well, just because I hit my 30-day goal doesn't mean that, I'm not going to use my reusable water bottle anymore. But it's good to maybe for some folks to start slow by making little changes. So maybe their first conservation SMART goal is that they are going to, use a reusable water bottle. And they do say that, after you start doing something for several weeks, it becomes habit, it becomes more natural. So once people have that habit formed of using a reusable water bottle, maybe the next goal that they can create is that they're going to skip the straw. So they're going to try for 30 days to not use a plastic straw. They're going to bring a reusable straw with them. They're going to use a paper straw. They get into a habit of saying, no straw, please. So they can break these things down. And so maybe it's not just one thing you're doing to help the environment by using a reusable water bottle, but after a series of time, they use a reusable water bottle, reusable bags, they use cloth napkins at home. But, doing all of this at once is a lot. So if you break it down and you do, get into a habit of doing each one of these things at a time, that might help people to be able to stick to it and do these things more. What do you think?
Well, I think that if you started the whole thing like at once, like after like not a very long time, you're gonna realize this is really hard. I'm not sure that I still want to do this anymore. But if you like break it and start slow, I feel like you're gonna get more into the habit of it. It'll be easier for you to go on instead of just like starting out at the end. It's like, yeah, it's like really important that you make sure that you're starting slow. So you don't, like quarter way through, you're like, I don't want to do this anymore.
I agree. Because we're talking about lifestyle changes for people. So if you change too much at once, it can be overwhelming. But if you start slow, it can make it a lot more easier for people. And so that's why, you start with one conservation SMART goal. And once you're able to accomplish that one, you can move on to the next one. So hopefully, in getting ready to celebrate Earth Day tomorrow, all of our friends at home can, take some time today and reflect on what would be a great conservation SMART goal for them. And anytime you write goals, it's good to have those goals visible. If you write this in a notebook and you put it away, you're going to forget about it. So, post this somewhere. If your goal is to use a reusable water bottle, it should be posted in the kitchen, right? So then you always remember to go and grab and use your reusable water bottle and bring it with you when you go places. Go ahead.
Maybe you could put it near the cabinet of where you get your water bottle.
Yes, I think that's a great place where people can post it. So it's that nice visual reminder for them.
Or like right next to a plastic water bottle. Just to remind.
Yeah. So, hopefully we want everyone at home to think about, some of the things we brought Mia in today so that she could share and talk about some of the ways that she's helped in conservation. And hopefully that's inspired a lot of the kids at home so that now they are thinking about ways that they can help in conservation. So Mia, before we log off today, is there any advice you have for all the kids who are watching and how they can help in conservation? What do you think it's important for them to know?
Piece of advice that I have is it's really easy to overlook something. It's like so a goal appears bigger than it is, like you're wearing an invisible pair of binoculars. And it's like it's really easy to overlook it and make it feel so big. It make you feel like I can't do this, I'm just a kid. But you really have to think that if you chunk it down slowly, it'll get smaller and smaller and smaller until it's a more achievable goal.
I think that is great advice for everyone at home, really looking at what it is they hope to accomplish, talking with, their family around them, some of their peers, looking at how they can break it down, right, into smaller achievable goals until one day they have those smaller goals reached so that they can accomplish that really big goal. I think that's awesome advice for everyone. Well, Mia, thank you so much for joining us today and talking about all the ways that you've helped in conservation and really helping to inspire other kids to see and realize how at any age they too can help in conservation, and really giving some ideas to everyone at home. And hopefully everyone at home is going to make those conservation SMART goals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much again, Mia. So we hope everyone has a really great day out there. And we're going to sign off. So I want to say bye to everyone, Mia.
Bye.
Hope everyone has a great day and we will see you all tomorrow.